Now here I will the part that say to do during class. This will be the answer of those questions. What I recommend you is that you go first, try them, and if you have any doubt, you can watch this video, in particular the questions that you have more doubts. You can skip the part that you think that you understood. Okay, if you have a question about this particular statement, you can watch the following explanation, but here the key is this. Metabolic pathways, and here you need to remember this is the part that you have to pay a lot of attention. Release stored energy. How? By breaking complex molecule. So it's a metabolic pathway that has a very complex molecule. So for example, a protein, and do two things: turn it into amino acids, amino acids, and plus energy. So this is what is this? They're asking you what is the name of this process. So fermentation pathway is something different. Thermodynamic pathways here, this is very general. As we will see, we will define what is bioenergetic and thermodynamics, but this is not. This doesn't make sense. It should be one of these two. And in the next slide, I will show you a schematic that helps you to explain this. So here you have the anabolic pathways. In this one, you take energy and you take small molecules. So for example, amino acids, and you turn it into a large molecule. In this case, could be proteins. You can also have proteins like sugars, and you can have complex carbohydrates, and here you can have simple sugars, monosaccharides, and turn it into more complex carbohydrates like polysaccharides. Yeah. On the other hand, the opposite process is called catabolic reaction, that you take large molecules, you release energy, and you turn that into small molecules. So from proteins here to amino acids. This could be one example. Or as I said before, you can have the example of the sugar. So here the answer will be catabolic pathways, because here you are releasing the stored energy here by breaking. So here you're breaking this in those complex molecules or large molecules into smaller molecules. So definitely this is the right one. Okay, this one is a question that you can start discarding or rejecting the wrong answers. And here you have to read very well the statement. So what is the study of energetic flows through living organisms? So when they talk about living organisms, thermodynamics, here thermodynamics, you're studying physical system plus biological plus chemical plus all the systems. So thermodynamics is too general. Anabolism and catabolism, we just watch it. We just explain it. So here you go from complex to small molecules, and in the anabolism you go from simple to complex. So here we are not talking about the energy flow in that sense. This is both are partially correct. So this is not exactly the answer. And metabolism is the two type of these reactions: catabolic and anabolic and catabolic reactions. So here the best answer will be bioenergetics. And let me explain why. So in this slide, I just try to make this even more clear. So here you can find the definition of thermodynamics. And as I said before, this is a branch of physics that deal with the relationship between heat and other forms of energy. So this is very general. Well, here they're asking you only about living organisms. Here we talk about the two types of metabolisms, metabolic pathway, anabolic reactions, and catabolic reactions. So definitely this one, and this one is not correct. And here you have the definition of metabolism, that is all the chemical reactions involved in maintaining living state. However, the answer asked you is for the study of the energy flow in living organisms. So it's the study of the metabolism. And this is the definition of bioenergetics. So it's how energy flow in biological systems. So here, this will be the answer. However, all these terms are related. All these terms are related. So if we make this type of graphical representation here, so for example, with fruits, very silly, you have red fruits and here yellow fruits. Let's try to do the same thing with the definitions that we just saw. So thermodynamics will be the most general, and inside of thermodynamics you have a specific area that is bioenergetic, that is only for biological systems, and bioenergetics study the metabolism, and there is two types of metabolism: catabolic reaction and anabolic reaction. So although those terms are connected, they are different. And here in the inside of the metabolism, you will have the catabolic and anabolic reaction. Okay, so hopefully this is clear. The answer definitely is bioenergetics. So this question is very similar to a previous one. Here they are asking you for the term that describe the cellular process of breaking down large into small molecules. And I said to you the example that, for example, large molecule could be a protein, and here you can have amino acids. So you're breaking this large molecule into a small one. And catalyst is the acceleration of a chemical reaction using a catalyst, so this is not the answer. Metabolism is, it can go in both directions, so this is not the correct one. Dehydration, this is not correct. So here the answer will be catabolism. And here, as we explained it before, you go from large molecules, so you go from polymers to monomers, and you also produce energy. And in the video lectures, I talk about how to go from, in anabolic reactions, you go in the opposite direction, that you go from a simple molecules into a large molecule, but you need to spend energy. And I give you the example of a monosaccharide that it can be stored as a polysaccharide. And here I gave you another example. You can have amino acids, you make peptides, and then you can make a protein. And this is another example of how to go from a simple molecule, from a monomer, to a more complex or large molecule. And these are anabolic reactions. Okay, this is a relatively difficult question. So let's try to discard the answers that are not correct and try to see the ones that are true. Which one is that answered the best this question? So let's start. The question is, why is ATP an important molecule in metabolism? So we have to see what of this option answered the best. What is the best answer, the most exact way that this statement answered this question? So first one, let's see if this one is correct. ATP hydrolysis provide an input of free energy. This is correct. For exergonic reactions, and this is wrong. This will be for endergonic reaction. So not the ones that release, the one that absorb energy. So this has only one part of the statement is true, the other one is false, so this is incorrect. This one, B, it provides a coupling between exergonic and endergonic reaction. And we explained that in the video lecture. This is correct. And this seems to be a good answer to why it's important, because it's allowing two reactions that are not able to take place, that require energy, to take place. Now let's see this one. In ATP terminal group contain a strong covalent bonds when hydrolyzed releases free energy. And this is true. This is true. This is definitely true. And later we have to evaluate which one is the best answer between at least these two, between B and C. Now let's go for the ATP terminal phosphate bond has higher energy than the other two. This is not true. Every time when you go from ATP to ADP and to AMP, you always release, I think it's 7.3. I think in the next slide we will check, but in all the cases you release the same amount of energy, so this is not correct. And finally, E, it is one of the 4 building blocks of DNA synthesis. And no, this is not the main reason and why ATP is important in the metabolism. Definitely, and this is adenosine. This is the same. It's a very similar molecule, but definitely this is not the right question, the right answer. So we have to pick between these two, B and C. And based on the explanations that I gave in the video lecture, this is the best answer, and I will explain that in a second, although this one is true. But this one, although this one explains how ATP produces energy at the molecular level, B is the one that explains why it's important for metabolism. So although both are correct, this one, B, answer better this question. And let me, in the following slides, try to explain this in more detail. So to start talking about ATP, I just remind you that ATP is adenosine triphosphate and is the cell's energy shuttle. It's composed of 3 main elements: ribose, adenine, and triphosphate groups. So here you can see the adenine, the ribose, and here you can find the triphosphate. And these triphosphate, as we will see in the next slide, are very important for energetic reasons. So in this slide, I'm going to just quickly remind you what we talk about the structure of ATP and the hydrolysis of ATP. Here you can see that the ATP has this 2-phosphate group. This is why this adenosine triphosphate, and this tail is very important. Why? Because you can break the terminal group when you do hydrolysis and you can release energy. So you go to the video lecture, I talk about how the ATP tails can be broken by hydrolysis and that there is energy that is released from ATP. And this energy comes from a chemical change to a state of lower free energy. So you go from ATP, from ADP to finish into AMP. So when you have 3-phosphate, 2-phosphate, and this is monophosphate, so only one. So this one, ATP, will have more energy, this one will have a little bit less, and this one will have even less energy. This hydrolysis of ATP can perform work. So in the video lectures, I talk about 3 examples: mechanical, transport, and chemical. And these are type of cellular work. Here in the next lecture, I will show you how using ATP, the proteins and the membrane can transport different compounds in the cell. So this is one example. I also talk about mechanical movement here, and you can go to the video lecture and to try to go into detail into this, but the idea is that you use ATP and you spend energy and turn it into ADP. And why explain this? Because definitely C is correct. As I show you, the terminal group of the phosphate contains a strong covalent bond, and when it's hydrolyzed, release free energy. This is correct. However, the question is why is an important molecule for metabolism? And the main reason is because it allowed the coupling between exergonic and endergonic reaction. And this is a slide that I show you how you have energy from catabolism and anabolic pathway, and how using ATP you can connect these exergonic and endergonic reactions. And this is an example that you can find in more detail in the video lecture. Here, what I wanted to show you is that you have some endergonic reactions that are not as spontaneous. So, for example, if you remember, I talk about how this reaction has a positive delta G, so it's not possible to take place. It's not going to happen spontaneous. However, when you put ATP drive endergonic reactions. So the same reaction plus ATP now is possible. Why? Because now you're going to have a delta negative, and this is going to become spontaneous. And if you have more questions, go to the video lecture, but definitely the answer will be because here you have an endergonic reaction, and if you add ATP, now you can make those reactions possible. And as I told you before, you have many reactions that don't take place spontaneously, like the transport of some molecules at the cellular level. Some mechanical work at the cellular level is not going to happen spontaneously. You will need ATP. So why ATP is important in metabolism? Because it allows to couple exergonic and endergonic reaction. So that is the answer. Now let's go to the next question. Which of the following statement is the first law of thermodynamics? We already answered this in the quiz. The energy cannot be created or destroyed. So this would be the good one. The entropy of the universe is decreasing. Okay, this would be the second law and is increasing. The entropy of the universe is constant. This is wrong. The kinetic energy is stored energy. This is not. This is the potential energy. Energy cannot be transferred or transformed. No, this is actually energy can be transferred and transformed, but cannot be created or destroyed. So remember, this is the first law of thermodynamics. The energy can be transferred and transformed, but cannot be created or destroyed. So as I said, this is the best answer, or the only answer in this case. All the other ones are incorrect. And in the video lecture, I talk a little bit about the first law and the second law in this slide. So if you have any doubt, you can go back in the video lecture, and also in the videos, they talk about that in case that you have any doubt. So in this question is relatively difficult, but let's try to answer it together. First, I want that you read it, stop the video, and try to think about it. And I highlight in red and in green components that are very important in this question. So here, for example, they are talking about the living organisms, and this is the first component that is very important. They increase in complexity as they grow. So in the beginning, you have a few cells that are organized, and when they grow, the organisms will have much more cells. So here you are going to reduce entropy, and this is very important because, as we know, the second law of thermodynamics actually says that entropy is increasing in the universe. So how this can be compatible if the organisms are growing, the living organisms are growing, reducing entropy, but actually we said that the second law is increasing in entropy. So the answer A states that, the living organisms don't obey the second law of thermodynamics, and this is wrong. This is not the right answer. Here, answer B, it said that life obeyed the second law of thermodynamics. This is correct. Life definitely obeyed the law of the thermodynamics because decrease the entropy as the organisms grow. This is also true. And how it does it? By balance with the energy of the universe. So here they are saying that there is a balance between the living organisms and the universe. And as we said, the entropy of the universe is actually increasing, so this is not correct. The last statement here, there is no balance. So A and B are not correct. C, living organisms don't follow the law of thermodynamics. So this one is not correct either. And here they give us a very good question in D, that as the organism grows, as I show here, so here they cause a greater increase in the entropy of their environment than decrease of entropy associated with the organism, and this is correct. So what they are saying is, yes, organisms, when they grow, so there is growth here, so you have much more cells and they are very organized. However, as they grow, the environment surrounding this cell, so while this entropy is low, the surrounding, the entropy is very high. So for low entropy, and this is the right answer, and in the following slides I will show you why. E, living organisms are able to transform energy into entropy. This is correct, but is not answering the question. So this is true, but this is the best answer. And in the following slides I will explain why. So to explain the answer here, we have to remember that the entropy of the universe is start increasing. So from an organized state, we are moving to a more disorganized state. And if you remember in the beginning of the class, we talked about that every time that the energy is transferred and transformed, there is to some degrees, there is some energy that is lost in form of heat and waste, and this is what we call entropy. However, living organisms have very low entropy, and when they grow, so when they were small, they have low entropy, but later they have even lower and lower entropy. The more than they grow, they become more and more organized. So this goal seems to some degree oppose what the second law of thermodynamics propose. However, when you go and analyze that, yeah, the organisms are growing are reducing their entropy, but how? They have nutrients, they are absorbing nutrients that have low entropy, and they are, as a result, they are producing waste products that have high entropy. So although in the sense they are reducing their entropy, they are increasing the entropy of the surrounding environment. So the living organism entropy reduced, but actually they are increasing more entropy because they have waste products and heat exchange that actually increase the entropy of the universe. So although this one is true. This doesn't completely answer the question. The statement that better answer the question is this one, as I just explained. And here the problem is that the here balance by increase here is saying that the universe, the energy of the universe, it doesn't change. It's constant because it's balanced. And this is not right. The energy of the universe should continue increasing the entropy. So this is incorrect. So the answer will be D. This is the best answer. So again, this question, if you want, you can watch it several times and try to think about it. And the answer is D. And here I highlight the important components that show you that help you to answer that question, to think about that question. Okay, now this question. Energy coupling occurs when an endergonic reaction drive an exergonic reaction. So if you remember, endergonic absorb energy and this one exert energy. So this is incorrect. When an exergonic reaction drives an endergonic reaction, this is correct. When heat is generated, there is no this is not correct. Allosteric interaction are at work. If you remember, allosteric interaction is when you have an enzyme with multiple active sites. Chemical equilibrium is reached. This is not true. This is false. So the answer will be B. So the answer will be B. Here, an exergonic reaction drive an endergonic reaction. And if you remember the previous slide, I show you an example of an endergonic reaction that is not spontaneous. Again, because this is positive. So what you do, the ATP that is turned into an ADP that is an exergonic reaction. So the ATP, the exergonic reaction drive the endergonic reaction. And now as you have, when you add these two reactions, when they are coupled by the hydrolysis of ATP, you can have a delta negative, as we showed last time, and now the reaction can take place and be spontaneous. Which of the following is the most similar structure to ATP? So this is important. This could be in the test and is not a difficult question. And if you remember this ATP, we have been focusing on this 3-phosphate. Yeah, 3-phosphate. But the adenosine sounds very similar to a nucleotide. Yeah, so let's look into that. So a pentose sugar, adenine nucleotide, an RNA nucleotide, an amino acid 3-phosphate group, a group attached, or a phospholipid. So definitely a phospholipid, no. A pentose sugar, maybe not. An amino acid, no. So the answer, it could be into a DNA nucleotide or an RNA nucleotide. And what will be the difference? In the type of sugar. If it's a deoxyribose or just a ribose. So let's go and try to, now that we reject all these questions, now we just have to know the structure of the ATP. Okay, so now you have 50-50 chances to answer well this question in case that you don't remember. But if you remember, DNA has deoxyribose, while RNA has ribose. And if you see, the other components are phosphate groups, adenine, but here is the key one, is ribose. Yeah, so the answer will be C, an RNA nucleotide. So as I show here, this one and this one. So this one will be the correct one.